Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video I'll be doing my trade targets for round 23, going through who are the best options and going through who you should be really bringing in, depending on a lot of players have, a lot of teams have injuries, etc., that are causing some players needing to be brought in, etc., in certain positions, and also just trying to beef up your stocks, especially in the midfield, as some midfielders seem to be failing at the moment. So before we get into the video, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and let's get into the video. So as you can see here, this is sort of my team. You'll probably see the trades, etc., but onto the trade targets, I guess. And the last game, obviously, Newcomb 159 was absolutely huge. Do I think he's going to repeat it against Melbourne? I don't think so. But, I mean, he did score it against the Bulldogs, who are a good side. And he played Melbourne for a 96 early in the year. So you could say, honestly, that he's in a little bit better form. So could he go 105 or something like that against Melbourne? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised also if it's a Newcomb versus Viney head-to-head. And those two were the top scoring guys I didn't have last week. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I do think that Viney is a good pick this at the moment. 117 against the Hawks last year, and is in a run. I mean, he is in a run that shows that this should be an off game, obviously. But it's Viney. He was a good pick when I said that you guys should pick him in the trade targets video. I want to say rounds 15 or 16. And it's clearly shown that he can go huge, and 111 last 5, 119 last 3 is absolutely huge. Amon playing off that backline, he's just a midfielder which sucks. If he was in the backline, I'd definitely say go get him, but he's not in the backline, so I wouldn't say so. And now because we've done the top guys here, I'll sort of go into the guys that I think well, we've had a couple of injuries, such as Doherty went down. We've also had the likes of, if I just go to team selected by, and then we can go by injuries. Nick Dacos down to 30%. Wow. He got Jimby obviously injured. Ryan Butters is fine at the moment. Ashcroft injured. Doherty is potentially injured, so we need to go through the back line and go through options there. Anyone else injured at a high percentage? Doesn't look like it particularly. No, doesn't really look like it. McRae, you might want to look for a forward option if McRae, because of that shocker from McRae, as his role is like completely changed, honestly. Vesatini should be back, it seems like. Anyone else here? I can't really see anyone else that is injured per se. So let's get the back lines up, and then we'll get the forward line up, and obviously we'll go through the midfielders. So in defense, you have pretty much everyone that's averaging over 100 is out or already in my side. So I think the number one defender replacement for Doherty would just be a straight swap for Newman. Newman's been absolutely bossing it, and is 8.71. I'm pretty sure if I was to look back on my YouTube videos, he was in like the 4s when I picked him up or something like that. So for Newman to be 8.71 is quite is going up, and he's going to go up to I think 12 or 15 if he continues it with. I don't know if Gold Coast will necessarily tag. Then he has GWS, and I don't think GWS will put a forward tag on him. So I think he will be able to roam free, and he should score well. If you're looking at other guys, you could look back at Sheasel just flicking him down back or something like that, and that could help you guys out. And that's something that I'm probably going to do, as I don't trust Ryan, and I think there's better options than Will Day, as Will Day comes up against Melbourne, which, I mean, he did score. What did he score against Melbourne? 77 against Melbourne. He did struggle, so I don't know whether he'll get that down back roll against Melbourne or not, depending on who they have coming back, but we'll wait and see on that one. Duggan, I think, has dropped off since early performances. I mean, if we actually change this to last 3, here we go, 3 round average. You got Jake Lloyd, he's doing his stuff. 127, 92, 105. He's come back and started to get a little bit more of the ball. But if he reverts back to this form here, even taking out the Richmond game, he's still averaging like 70, 77, 78 in this 4-week period here, as well as just this 900. You really need a guy that's going to go probably 115 in the last 2 games. And I think Sheasel playing down back, especially against Richmond, and then playing down back against the Suns with no Jack Zeeble in round 24 should be really good, as he should just be able to get the ball himself pretty much. So that's why I'm going for Sheasel, as well as just covering off like half the competition, because I played with Sheasel without Sheasel for a little bit, and he's burnt me, but also helped me a little bit. So just trying to, I guess, negate that a little bit, because I do think he will go huge in the last 2 weeks. You could look at Hayden Young's last couple of weeks and think he's going to do well, especially with that new midfield role. I wouldn't be surprised if he turns into a midfielder next year. And with an 89 average, or say he averages 90, that's going to put him right around that 800k mark, I would think. 90 times the magic number from last year, 797. So if he averages 90, if he averages 89, that puts him around about 788. So yeah, I think he could be a really good play next year. Could he be a good play to finish out the year? He's playing Port and Hawthorn, and that could be interesting. I do think that Hawthorn will tag Sarong more, because they seem to tag they seem to tag the guy that doesn't actually, the secondary guy. So I do think that Brayshaw is more likely to not cop the tag from the Hawks, as he can do it. It's not as much as Sarong, I guess I could say, in that Sarong seems to get the ball a little bit more. So as long as they're knocking, and Sarong seems to be an easier guy to tag a little bit compared to Brayshaw. So I do think that Hayden Young will be that third midfielder in the in Freo. I do think that they've been trying to, for the last like 3 or 4 years, try and find that midfielder. They tried it with O'Meara, they've tried it with Johnson, Erasmus and stuff like that, but I do think that Hayden Young has shown that he can do it. Or whether it depends, because you could also see Hayden Young as almost a stopgap, just to try and get more development into Erasmus and Johnson more, because they could come on next year and really push on. So it really depends what Hayden Young's role looks like. Brayshaw, he's started to get into some form here as well, moving into the midfield. Wingerdine Milera is also a guy that you could go for, but that would leave me so open to St Kilda with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 St Kilda guys, plus Windhager on the bench for 6. Whitfield, I don't think is an option, even though he did well against the Bulldogs, because he's got Essendon and Carlton. I wouldn't be surprised if Carlton run a tag on him or something like that, and Essendon could easily do the same. Scott has done pretty well. I wouldn't be surprised if he picks it up because Zeebel's last game, etc. And then in the last game he goes nuts. But I mean, he's burnt people. Once I put him in the trade targets, he went, I think, the 55 game. So I'm not going to tempt that fate again. Is there anyone else here really? Houston you could look at, but I think I was worried out because of this this Geelong game, so I don't know whether I'd necessarily want Houston. But then again, Houston, he's playing Freo and Richmond, so that could be interesting in round 24 to get Houston, and then also get Houston out of like I don't even know, maybe even a Cogs or something like that, and push Sheasel up forward, because the Cogs role seems to be dead at the moment. And then try and get like a Rory Laird as well, or something out of it as well, because a Rory Laird against West Coast is a pretty good proposition at the moment, it looks like, in round 24. Any defenders really else here don't really look like, it looks like at this point we're getting down to the mid-pricer defenders, as well as the key defenders that take some marking ability, and I just don't really like any of them at the moment for the rest of the year. Then we move on to, obviously, the midfielders. Who's the hot midfielders? It's Viney at the moment, and he's got that Hawks matchup. He could cop a tag, though. This Hawks matchup, with the way that they're playing at the moment, is actually turning into a really tough matchup. So I would be cautious with Viney. I think he could easily, but then again, it's Viney, and he could easily just make it that up with 10, 12, 13 tackles. Especially because a lot of these bad games that he's having are because he's low tackle numbers, like a 1 and a 2 here. If those are up at 5, that's 5 consecutive tons. So I think he still does well. I don't know whether he gets the 30 disposals necessarily, which will really hamper that that ability to score, but I think he can easily get the tackles to offset that. Amon Laird, I think, is a really good option. Plays Sydney, so they haven't played Sydney this year, and if we go back here, I wonder if this will work. 2022, he played Sydney. When did he play Sydney? Is it just not gonna load properly for Rory Laird? So I guess I'll have to do it. I guess I'll do it through the AFL app, whilst I also talk about Mason Wood. Actually been a surprising pick. Obviously went 68 against the against the Tigers, so I wouldn't necessarily be picking him for your sides, as I think that 153 against Carlton was a little bit I think it was just a little bit not necessarily what he's gonna put up week by week. I thought he was always that like hundreds guy, and I think that pretty much showed with the Richmond game of 68, sort of breaking back to his mean, and also this run before here, and then he only went 102, 115, and those are with 9 marks. So it was an uptick in marks that did it, and that Carlton game he had 36 touches. So I'm not too invested, I don't think, in Mason Wood at any point, and he also is a winger against Geelong, and from memory I don't think the wingers at Geelong, because I believe they're playing at Marvel Stadium, but the wingers don't really do terribly well anyway. Still trying to find that Adelaide game. Here we go, found it. Last year against Sydney, Rory Laird had a 138 against the Swans, and that was 38 touches and 6 tackles. So I wouldn't be surprised if Callum Mills goes to him. So that is something that I am throwing up, is going the likes of a Houston instead of a Sheasel, and also getting Laird in instead of Oliver. Those were my trades at the moment, but hopefully Doc pulls up fine or something like that, because that will enable me to get, I guess, to upgrade Windhager alongside Libba, as Libba's 875. I can upgrade. I'm pretty sure I have like a little bit of money in the bank, so hopefully I can upgrade there. But we'll wait and see on that one. But is there anyone else really? Treloar, you could go against West Coast, but then he has Geelong in the last game. And if we look at, did he play Geelong? He played for a 130. West Coast, he played have they played West Coast yet? It doesn't look like they have. So you could look at Treloar, especially with Libba out of that midfield, at least for this week against West Coast. He could go absolutely nuts. So I wouldn't be surprised about that one, but there's also an injury risk, so you have to watch out for that. It does suck that he only has midfield status, as you're really looking for, I guess, any Dogs players, because they have that, obviously, that game, not West Coast, Western Bulldogs. I wouldn't say McRae. I guess McRae you could sort of play because he is playing West Coast and he probably will score 80 against them anyway. But I don't think there's any Dogs players that are really missing other than Treloar. But do you want Treloar as your midfielder over the likes of a Rory Laird or something like that? I don't think you do at the moment. So, as I think Rory Laird will outscore Treloar in the last couple of weeks. But we'll wait and see on that one. So now we move into the forward line, and I'll get through it relatively quickly. As the ruck department, there's nothing really changed. And then so for the forwards, you've got Zach Butters playing against Freo, and then Richmond. Good last couple of weeks, I believe. 130, 121. That was pretty good. And so I think the trade off between Jackson and Butters, I think it's going to be pretty close anyway. And yeah, I could end up bringing in Butters in the last couple of rounds. It depends. We'll wait and see. But I don't think I'll be bringing him in this week, as I don't really need a forward at the moment, as my forwards are pretty set. Walker, I think you could, he's playing the Swans, you could honestly almost go for Walker against West Coast. I mean, he kicked 10 against them for a 166, and I don't think they have any returning backmen. So if someone honestly goes big against, if a key forward goes big against West Coast this week, if one of the Dogs players like Ugo Hagen or something like that goes big, and also if West Coast have another injury down back, you honestly I might go for a play with going for Walker off the bench or something like that for Windhager, and then also upgrading Crouch to a Laird or something like that if I can do it, as I think that would be a fun play. I guess it would be a fun play, but it'll also be a play that I think could easily work out, and you could gain huge off of it, targeting that West Coast matchup. But we'll wait and see on that one, as it could easily flip against me, I guess. But if I do get Laird, and then I get also, if I get Laird this week, then it might also make it easier to do, as well as, who has the North Melbourne in the last round could be interesting. You could also get a Took or something like that to target that game as well. But I guess you'll have to. But I guess Took isn't doing too well, so maybe you targeted Noah Anderson actually in that last game against North. Noah Anderson's done all right. I wouldn't even be targeting Noah Anderson actually, looking at those numbers. There isn't really anyone that you can really target against North, which is a weird one, unless you went Flanders, but you'd have to see Flanders have a better game against Carlton to do that, as he just seems to be that 90s or 100 guy when you really want a guy to be hitting 110 and 115, as I was saying earlier in the video. So it's really hard at the moment to gauge who to target, I guess, in these last couple of rounds, because you're trying to target fixtures, but you're also saying these top tier guys like Laird, especially against Sydney, should still do well. You would think Viney would do well, even against a potential tag or something like that, as well as Sydney. He should do well in that game. What did he do earlier in the year against Sydney? He did 63 against the Swans, so that's that could put a lot of people off. You've also got Tom Green returning, which you could go for as well. Tom Green he plays Essendon as well as the Blues. If we look back here, Essendon 111, the Blues he went 110, so you could go for Tom Green as well. That would open a lot of things up if you did go for that. That actually could be a plan for me, so that I can get Houston in, and then in round 24 I can go for more players, except for and not try and have to target like Taylor Walker off the bench or something like that. So that is another play. But anyway, that is pretty much the video. A little bit of a rumble jumble type bag, as you're trying to look through all of the, I guess, statistics and stuff like that, and trying to find those guys to target. And I mean, there's so many top mids that I've even probably missed out on, as you know, I've even just looking here quickly, I've missed out on. I haven't even mentioned David Juniak. Lockie Neal isn't in any good form anyway, so I wouldn't be targeting him, as his last three are 80, last 5 85. You've even got Paddy Cripps. He put up a good performance on the weekend. Setterfield could be back, but I wouldn't be targeting him, obviously, as its first game back in a while. Chad Warner put up a decent performance, even with 4 free kicks against, which would have been a 106. Gawn could obviously do well, but I think that Grundy matchup is awkward, as well as him having only ruck. And yeah, there's a lot of guys that I've met that I haven't mentioned that could easily do really well. So I guess it is sort of hard, and it isn't the best video for me to just say, not really give a distinct option, but it depends at this time of the year, as most people in the top would have a potential Doherty injury, and for that, I'm obviously leaning towards Newman, Sheasel, and also Houston. I think are the three best defender options there. In the midfield, if you're looking at guys that are sort of not the most owned, you could obviously look at Track again, but he did go 96. Oliver, I think, is a big pay up, but obviously has the potential to go 130s and stuff like that, as he was going earlier in the year. I think Rory Laird and Tom Green should be leading that midfield pack if you guys wanted a replacement, I guess. And then in the forward line, obviously, it's Butters, Jackson. You could even target Taylor Walker next week, I think, but we'll wait and see if someone does really well against this one, against the Eagles, with them playing. Who are they playing? Them playing the Western Bulldogs. If Norton or Hugo Hayden does really well, then we might target Walker in the final round. But that is the video, and I'll see you guys in the tips video soon. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.